All right, guys, let's take a look at favorite projected first-round picks in this year's draft. You guys have collected a few names here. Pete, I'll throw it right back at you. Names like Wilson, Flowers, and Ika.
Yeah, when you look at these guys, Rick will argue with me about Ika. He doesn't think he's going to be a first-round pick. I disagree. I think he's Haloti Nada, and that's high praise. I think he's a power player who can also rush inside and get pressure inside. I know Rick thinks he's a big guy who's just a two-down player. I disagree. I think he's going to be a dominant inside player. And Flowers is the most underappreciated wide receiver in this class. I mean, you watch him at Boston College last year. Zay Flowers, all he did, Rick, was get open, and he had terrible quarterbacks.
Yeah, when you see a guy carry a team, and he was the only offensive weapon they had, so the defensive coordinators were trying to take him out of the game, yet they couldn't do it. And I've watched him for 2 years, and Flowers is a very explosive. He's going to get knocked a little bit because he has the small size, maybe a slot receiver only, could be a potential punt returner for you, but he's an excellent football player.
All right, Rick, what about you? Of course, you put some names like Osiris Torrance, Joey Porter Jr., Drew Sanders, and Deonte Banks.
Yeah, the one guy I want to mention is Deonte Banks. I just did him before I came down at the Combine. This is a very strong corner class. I believe there's 5 or 6 guys. Potentially all 5 or 6 can go in the first round this year. But when I put this kid on, Deonte Banks from Maryland, he's a big, long, athletic corner. He has excellent ball skills. He can support in the run. He plays the game like you want to play. He can fit in any type of defensive scheme. He can play man, he can play zone, and he's just going to get better the more he progresses. And I really think this kid's a sleeper that's going to show up in the first round. He's going to have a great combine. He's going to have great test numbers, and I think he's going to be a name that people are going to recognize, especially after this week.
Yeah, I think he's a first-rounder as well.
All right, guys, let's continue the conversation here. Factors that create an NFL draft bust or missed pick. Rick, I'll have you go first.
Well, I had a couple of those. Pete points them out to me every day, although there's only 3, but that's fine.
I'll pick all 3 of them. Laquan Treadwell.
Yeah. Okay, let's get through it all the list, and we'll go on from there. I didn't know it was like his shin was still sewn on the back of his leg.
Okay. But what are the factors?
I think the biggest thing that I learned when I made mistakes drafting a player is that you get so enamored with their athletic skill set. And when you come here at the Combine, that's what you got to be very conscientious of. Some guy goes out there and runs a 4.2 40. You have him maybe in a 3rd or 4th round, but you don't see that on the field. You got to trust what you see on tape. And you can have all the analytics, everything that we put into trying to make good decisions. 2 of the biggest factors where I made busts, and we always went back to try to make sure we didn't do the same thing again, guys that were underachievers, that had all this physical ability but didn't love to play the game of football. Eventually they get exposed. The other factor was I always thought you have to be intelligent to play this game at the NFL level. But there's a difference between intelligence and mental quickness. And you can have a quarterback go up there and you can meet with him. He can regurgitate back everything the offensive coordinator said, probably sound better than the offensive coordinator. But that was a 20-minute presentation. But when you sit there and he has to do that and process that in 2.5 seconds, or if an offensive guard, because things happen so quickly in line, they run an ET game or a game in line, he doesn't react to that quickly enough. He could be smart, but you also have mental quickness. So I put too much emphasis on intelligence, even though it's very important, and we started to hone in more on the mental quickness side and how quickly they can process.
See, for me, it's going to be play speed, and you kind of touched on it. We get too enamored with the clock,
right?
And how does a guy play? And if you're a good player in college, you're probably going to be a good player in the NFL. I mean, it doesn't always translate that way. It's hard to take a guy who's not a good player in college and try and project them to be a good player. The other thing is, how do you react psychologically of being a pro? You got money in your hand. You're not being catered to by the college. You have to be a man. You have to take care of your family. How do you handle that? And does that continue your upward trend, or do you get derailed by having all that money and everything else? I think those are 2 key factors, because there's a lot of guys I thought were good football players. They got derailed by the process and the trappings that come with being an NFL player.
And that's what you're trying to identify with these tests that we do, although I know you're not a big fan of the psychological testing. But
there you go. Look at those picks.
At those. There were a couple that Boy, Pete even liked Christian Ponder.
But look at the one on the right, though. I gave that guy an A.
Oh, Brady Quinn?
Yeah, I gave that pick an A.
No wonder you're so mean to him on the air all the time.
I mean, he made me look bad.
Yeah, no. What is he now?
He's a C- now.
Guys, A+ segment there. Rick Spielman and Pete Prisco. Gentlemen, certainly appreciate it. Rick, of course, part of the With the First Pick podcast with our draft analyst, Ryan Wilson. They're doing shows all week long from Indianapolis, so make sure to catch our coverage and With the First Pick as well. More scouting combine stuff coming throughout the week.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.